constituency, is here with us talking about the tensions along this border. What needs to happen long term? We need a long-term solution here.
I think in long term, one of the things that must happen is we must go from the known to unknown. First, the government must take responsibility. Responsibility ends somewhere and it starts somewhere. Secondly, it is about the communities that live on that border. You must accept that you also have something to contribute to that peace along that border. Because if you as communities just throw your hands up in the air and say, let the government take control, who is the government? At the end of the day, you are part of that arrangement called government. Thirdly, the communities must also accept to live in peace. Because before this incident, over the last 2 years, the Gabras and the Borans, they stopped fighting. Something that also we are pleasantly surprised. Because before, there will always be this killing, this is stealing of this livestock, this and that. But over the last 2 years, the Boras and Gabras is like silently everybody is saying that tumechoka. Let us accept peace and let us embrace peace. So mine is to, my suggestion is those two communities that live along the border, because they straddle the border, they must accept or agree to live in peace.
Okay. I have to ask, though, that every time we see that there's an issue, like with what we saw yesterday, then maybe it gives rise to why, because the conflict or the lack of peace, we've seen this for a very, very long time. But then I think in trying to solve the problem, one must look at the reason for the conflict. And I think more often than not, we don't look at where did this all start from? What is the problem? Before you even ask the who and the where did this start from? Do you have any ideas or insights into how this all began? Because if you say that two communities should live in peace, you more often than not have to revisit the original problem and say, where did these two communities begin to clash? For you to then be able to point to a solution. So what is that?
I want to say what is the starting point. The starting point historically is that the Gabras and Borans, if I take that as the origin of whatever is there, is they have naturally been just one people. It's just like when you make the coin, you make a head and a tail. That is how they were. But we saw the differences begin to grow as soon as the constituency of Saku and Nodor were created in 1988. This is when now the Gabras found the Borans. So these people found that, kumbe, we are different people. We never thought so. So there is that identity crisis, redefining yourself. So slowly it matured into that differentiation. We were communities that never used to kill or attack each other.
Where does that leave the other communities in the area? The Rendile, the Burji?
Yes. The Burjis, I think they are fairly a fabric of either the Boran and the Gabra, because they live with them. And they are business people, they are agrarians because they are largely farmers. So by and large, they are not part of this conflict. They will not fight any of them. Now, the Rendiles, the border with the Borans and the Gabra, we attack each other not for hatred or killing for trophy, but people steal animals from each other. They're wrestling. And in the traditional days, when there were no serious government, it was a hobby to steal from so-and-so just to do restocking. So we used to find it's normal. But also that time, the issue of killings were not that many. Because people used to just hunt with the spears. But most of these killings began to be pronounced and attenuated.
Yeah.
Once people started having guns, machine guns, automatic rifles. But for the two communities, the Gabra and the Boran, their relationship is quite unique. In many ways, one language, one people, they intermarry, the same culture almost, traditions, almost by 95%. What divides us maybe is very little. So the issue of now government taking control, you know, when we say government in Marsabit, is the office of the president, is the Ministry of Interior. Those are the people who give you locations, the districts. There are people who give you the police. So whoever is close to that power tends to get more.
Right.
So when somebody else gets 2 locations, then you'll ask as the Rendile, Gabra or Boran will say, okay, and Namimi, what have you given me? So I, without fear of contradiction, I used to say even in Parliament that our problem emanates from the office of the President, that they will give whoever comes. They must follow up to say, okay, we have given Honorable Rasso this. What can we give Honorable Wario, the MP for Northern? And have we given the MP for Moyale? Have we given to Lekuton, the MP for Laisamis? So that you don't interfere with the power balance. You allow all the time a win-win situation so that no one community or 2 communities feeling, oh, you know, we are being shortchanged. And it needs both very intelligent and magnanimous individuals in the office of the president to do that balancing act. Because once that balance is interfered with, it goes all the way to the ground. That even herdsmen know that, oh, so-and-so got a location yesterday and people are celebrating. So-and-so got a chief from their clan. And yesterday they killed a few bulls.
So such things matter.
Such things matter.
The National Cohesion and Integration Commission has done a lot of work on Marsabit County. Various administrations, various interior ministers, and people in the Interior Ministry have done a lot of work. Their reports, all these things, they've had meetings with the leadership from this area. Are you saying that none of them really sees this as a solution? Has it never been put to them?
You know, Eric, the difficulties that we experience as leaders and also politicians, Kenya is quite different from the whole of this region. When I was in the army, I was in AMISOM in Somalia. In fact, I was in Somalia for 2 years. And I understood what functions and what does not. I am quite familiar with the administrative arrangement in Ethiopia, also in Uganda. Not that much, but a bit in Tanzania. What those countries tend to do is first is they demonstrate to the population the presence of government, that citizens will not act out of any disorder. They will always fear on their back that there's government. Secondly, these governments are very cognizant to say that, are we disadvantaging any group? Because potentially that will be a spark. I know of a case in Ethiopia where communities move, because pastoralists, they move a lot. And then in the process, they give some regions or location to some other groups. And it becomes the spark for what I would call a long stretch conflict. And then suddenly they say, oh, okay, if that is the cause of conflict, we have returned it. So in our case, although we live in a postmodern society, but our rural areas are largely still traditional, and they keep to certain things. They say, no, please, don't take this from me. And that is why we have an assistant chief in a sub-location. That is the smallest administrative unit. It is a bridge between that is small village and the government. Then location. The arrangement that, although we can despise the colonialists, but the arrangement that they left, we have not changed a lot because it works for us to an extent. So for me, and the question that you have asked, we know that there are a lot of achievements in terms of what they have done in the office of the president or Ministry of Interior, as it were. But there are certain things, a decision which was taken under Kenyatta 1, under Moi, under Kibaki. So if you try to undo that under Ruto, it becomes very difficult. It's like you are trying to climb Mount Kenya when you are not prepared. Look at Ongata Rongai. Ongata Rongai today is largely part of Nairobi, although administratively it falls under Kajiado. Who are the inhabitants? When I was a young man in the army, Ongata Rongai used to be just a training ground. They are Masai Manyatas. It was just grazing area for the Masai. Today the Masais cannot look over their shoulders and say, oh, hapa ilikuwa kwetu.
It's gone.
It's gone. It's not that anyone dispossessed them of that land, but it is that evolution in human development. So slowly, even our region, the government must do, the government must be very proactive in terms of doing certain things differently. In terms of saying, this thing works for these people. Let no external influence affect it. These people live along the border. They want to cross this border. If they cross this border, there is no problem. But make sure there are no external elements that negatively influence the normal activities on this border. So there are things that the government is like a referee. The people are the players. It is the referee who says where there is foul.
Has the government been dropping the ball on those issues?
I think largely that is what I must say. Because if the government was focused throughout, I live in Nairobi. when I look at how the security machinery works, then I will go to Nakuru. Nakuru is not Nairobi. Is what I would call peri-urban. It's urbanized, but also there are people who live in farms. They are almost rural. That combination calls for a different type of security arrangement. Then as you go out completely, you go to Baringo. Baringo is very different. One party is urbanized. People are living in towns. They are very peaceful. And then just across, when you go across Lake Baringo, then that is like an area where people are fighting. So that security arrangement is different. So what I would personally advise or advocate for is for us not to appear to be making the same arrangement that we think it works in town, it can work in rural. It doesn't. That's why we have the NPR in those outlying areas. There are not enough policemen. There are not enough security agencies. So you give arms to some of the locals to take care of the security, not just against marauding bands of bandits, but also against animals, because animals will come and attack your livestock. So there's no time to call security.
You need to have your own arms.
Yes.
I saw some of the leaders after yesterday's incident calling for the rearmament of the National Police Reserve. The locals to be rearmed because they were disarmed some time ago. Would you advocate for the same?
Yes, they were disarmed because the NPR became part of the problem rather than the solution, because they come from one community. So this community is fighting with the other one. So they contributed actually more to that insecurity. But if the government is going to rearm, which I would advocate, then the security arrangement must be different in terms of who are these people with arms, where do they live, what are their responsibility, because you cannot give a person an arm without responsibility. That responsibility must really be there. Responsibility without borders is no responsibility. And when you arm a civilian, it's not like a security person who keeps that arm in an armory. They will go with it to wherever they go.
The market.
Yes, everywhere. So that policing, that arm does not do what is not really prescribed.
Okay.
So
rearm them, but put stringent conditions on them.
Indeed.
Kano, we thank you for joining us today. We hope that you'll come again and we'll continue this conversation. Kano Dido Ali Raso is the Member of Parliament for Sako constituency in the National Assembly. He's been here. We'll be talking about the insecurity in Marsabit County, what's happening, and what the government needs to do to address this issue. Keep it here for more. It's 8 a.m.